Hello everybody, what's up? This is map 3 of the ELEAGUE Grand Finals between Misfits and Envious, all tied up at 1-1. Anyway, we have Misfits defending on Gibraltar, and Envious will be attacking for this first round at least. Now, if you look at Envious's lineup, it's very tank-centric. 4 tanks basically. Mei is essentially a tank hero. Just a beefy, takes a lot of damage. On Misfits, we don't have too much damage to deal with this type of composition. Nice hook on the Mei, by the way, but between the wall and the shield, she should be fine. So like I said, Misfits only has the Reaper to really do a ton of damage, meaning if Envious can spread out so the Reaper can't get to them all, they should have a matchup advantage. And one more thing to note about Misfits team comp real quick, because the fight is just about to start. We're about to hop down here. Misfits doesn't have any way to contest this high ground. They have no real range, nobody who really makes sense to be up here, so they're going to give Envious complete control over this, which we're going to wind up seeing causes a strange positional problem for Misfits. So we do have a Reinhardt and a Roadhog for Envious back here. Notice where soon the Reaper for Misfits is, the all-star, the only person on this team who can do DPS right now, hero-wise, is up here. That's going to give the Reinhardt and the Roadhog free reign, while there's still people fighting up here, the rest of the team that is. So let's see what happens. We do have trades come out, but the backline is exposed, and Hook just came up again. So there's a kill, and Roadhog maybe getting another one as well, possibly here. The Reaper actually just died for Misfits, so that's going to pretty much mark the end of the fight. But you could see that even though, like I said, Misfits actually played that rather well. They just didn't have the damage to actually kill Envious. And Reaper, their only damage was, he's very short range, so he only has a limited amount of actual exposure. So Misfits comes in here, but it's like only a 3 or 4 v6. You have some ults from Envious. You have the Mei wall. It's very effective, especially at keeping them out of those 2 little choke points, those 2 little doors, the only way to get into the first checkpoint from the defender's spawn. And Envious, as a result, winds up taking the first checkpoint relatively quickly. Not a ridiculous time, but certainly quite a brisk pace. Now, if we look at, as we jump down here, hold that thought though, we already have a fight. So Envious actually pops the Mei ult up here. If we look, it's, wow, we really got launched up in the air. They pop it up there, but as you can see, Envious doesn't actually have much range. So the Mei ult up here is not going to wind up having any follow-up. So that is certainly an issue for this fight. But we do see 2 early picks, which is quite good. We have the nano boosted Reaper. Ooh, hooked by the Roadhog. That's being a bit courageous. But now we have Misfits throwing out the Zarya ult to clean up. And Lucio coming out a little bit, not even a little bit, but quite a bit late there. If he wasn't going to ult for the Zarya ult, he should have at least ulted at some point during the fight. That ult was quite late, and there was... At that point, Misfits already had so much of an advantage because they had used their ults. If he had just saved it for the next fight, that would have been great. That would have been great. But we're going to see Internet Hulk is going to use his own ultimate, and right now they're just being really greedy. So you can see that they have been at a disadvantage ever since Misfits used their Zarya ult. They've been down on positioning, they've been down on numbers, and yet Envious is trying to force it through with just sheer, I guess, willpower. And because of that, they burn their Lucio ult, they burn their Ana ult, and they burn their Zarya ult in a fight that they already had a disadvantage in, and that throws the momentum strongly back to Misfits when Envious had all the momentum before. Imagine if they're coming in with 5 ultimates right now. That would be quite a fight for Envious. That would be quite a push. But if we look here, so this map, actually, if we take a look real quick, this choke is the only easy point of access to progress through the map in this part, which makes Soon's Reaper very effective. And Misfits' composition that they've been running in this map that we have been seeing relies heavily on the Reaper doing a lot of damage, because they don't have much other damage in the rest of the comp, especially against a tank-centric lineup that Envious was running. So it's much more effective in this part of the map, which is why they're being more successful. But we also have this side area, even though it's difficult to go into because you're choked down that little door, but you also have mobile heroes that can get up here So a good way to deal with that would just be to run at least one flanker and kind of spread out. You always want to spread out when you have teams that have just one single Reaper doing a ton of damage, because we're going to see that throughout the map, throughout the round, that is, Envious is just going to really cluster up into this choke point or up into this choke point and let the Reaper get all of the exposure he wants to their entire team. So that is why Envious is having a bit more trouble with this checkpoint than the last one. But we do see real quick, I know we've been suspended for quite a while, but Taimu did switch to the McCree. Now this is actually quite a decent comp to just deal with the solo Reaper on Misfits being the kind of the carry DPS player. And if they just take it very slowly, use their now superior range, it'd be nice if they actually had another range hero actually, that would be very nice. And just slowly push up and pick at Misfits, poke, they could have a pretty easy time here. But let's see what they do. So they're pushing up into this side room. And again, I said that it is really effective to split versus the solo DPSing Reaper. That is a Mei ult by Misfits, and it gets like the entire team. That's like a 6-man Mei ult. So right there, that's absolutely the fight. If you get a 6-man Mei ult, then no more needs to really be said at that point. The Ana ult actually wasted on RYB, the Reinhardt player, so he didn't actually have to use the Ana ult there. That's one ult they won't have for next fight. But Tailspin does switch to a Pharah here, which I love. I love this composition. Like I said, I actually just said that they need a little bit more range here. Now, the Pharah can actually come up and do this little side flank, and she does actually have a Mercy to accompany her. So that is a-okay. But Misfits doing a good job avoiding the Pharah. Now, if they still just take it a little bit slow, but we see here, we see that Envious actually pushed up into this, I'm going to call it choke of death, where Reaper and crew can drop on you. And that's going to make them lose a lot of heroes before this Pharah or this McCree can get much poke off. So a little bit fast there by Envious. If they had just if they just trusted their DPS to get in there and work picks, I think that they would have gotten it. You know, I trust Taimu and Tailspin. At least I would if I were their teammates on Envious. But while we have a little bit of a lull here, I've been talking about Soon as the carry, the big DPS player, and it's not necessarily because Soon is some sort of god over the rest of his teammates. It's just because he's being put in that position. He is the one solo DPS hero, just as he gets picked off by a flame strike. But because we're about to have a fight, I'm going to pause it real quick. He has been put in the position almost all game where he is that solo big DPS hero. So his team has really been putting him in that carry role, putting him on sort of a pedestal. It's not necessarily because Soon is some sort of god among gods. So, just to clarify, the rest of the team is putting him in that position. So all of Misfits doing a good job. But we actually had Nevix, and I didn't mention this before. I'm going to mention this now because the Reaper did die and we're on the topic. Nevix did switch to McCree last fight after he died. So Misfits did detect the problem that they had the weakness with not quite enough damage, and so they switched off the Mei. This is actually going to wind up absolutely winning them this fight, because now they have enough damage. Normally, if Soon dies here, they absolutely lose because they have no DPS. But Nevix can take up the reins and see what he can do. So Envious still with the hero advantage, but not the health advantage. Again, being a little antsy, going up a little bit before they maybe should have, because remember, they do have a McCree and a Pharah, and also a Mercy. So they need to play it a little bit patiently. Now, they should have been hunting for Nevix. He was on low health. He was at 80 health up just on this catwalk here. And we see that Envious has actually a couple times this map in this checkpoint had the advantage, coming with the advantage, but then just sort of whoosh, rushed into that checkpoint really a little overly enthusiastically, which resulted in a big problem. Now, we're going to see, and because this game is just, these pushes are happening so quickly, I'm going to have to pause a couple times to explain stuff. We do see Tailspin switch to the Genji here. Now, this is not really that great. Envious only has 55 seconds left to push this point, and Genji is a relatively ultimate-reliant hero. He's definitely at his strongest when he has his ultimate up, and he can't reliably get it in only 55 seconds. It's possible, but not reliable. Here, if you were to switch off, you would want a hero that is less ult dependent, like maybe a soldier, for example, or the Pharah. Sticking on the Pharah would have been good, even a Roadhog. A hero that can definitely pull his own weight without needing that ultimate, but Genji is probably not that hero, but let's see what he does. So here we come in, we drop down off the fight. Soon gets a nice kill on the Lucio. Lucio didn't really have ult though, so that's not that big of a deal. Gets traded out. Tailspin does wind up going down on the Genji, and we just have trades all around. Taimu is on the high ground, gets a Deadeye off, and just clicks a couple heads. So now there's no more healers left. The Zarya goes down, the Reinhardt goes down, and we have a little bit of a push. But Soon died really early in that fight. Remember, Soon just immediately walked in and died immediately. So he actually does the sneaky teleport up here. But Envious is smart and here's the voice line that he gives. So you can see they're very, very scared. And they should be, because a Reaper dropping down onto a McCree is pretty much a dead cowboy. So instead they send their Winston up to deal with it, and he gets dropped down on, takes a decent amount of damage, but right now the Lucio ult is up for Misfits, and here comes the Zarya ult as well with no defensive ults to protect them. And Misfits doing a good job getting around the Reinhardt shield. That is going to be the round. And Misfits is going to wind up putting on a very strong hold. This is going to be relatively difficult for Envious to replicate. So here we are in round 2, and you do see Taimo is up here along with Chips Hagen on Ana. You can't see him, but he's somewhere over in that general direction. And they have a small ground force of tanks here below. Now, a Lucio is actually maybe not the best support to have here, because first of all, just a single Lucio is, as we've been seeing, quite weak to Zarya. So you have the trade-off where you're a bit weak as far as countering offensive ults, but you do have the speed, you do get more pushes in per game, plus you can kite back better if you're a huge force on the ground trying to kite back, sort of a tank-centric-ish comp. But there is going to be no kiting back for Envious. They just have these two heroes here up on the catwalk, and they're just going to sort of stand here with this particular team comp. For this, you don't want the Lucio because you're not really utilizing his speed burst at all, and that's what makes him entirely good. This should really be a Zenyatta. The Zenyatta can stand up here, contribute Discord Orb anyone who jumps up here on the catwalk, and his ultimate is just a lot better in general for countering the Zarya ult that we're almost certainly going to see from Misfits here on KRYW. Now, yes, you could say that the Tracer Bomb kind of negates that in this particular case because Misfits picked Tracer, but really think about it, not really. The Reinhardt's probably going to be in the Zarya ult. He's not going to get one shot. The Zenyatta is now immune. He can't get killed. And you do have a Zarya who can shield against the Tracer Bomb. So really, if it's played properly, even with a Zenyatta ult, the Tracer Bomb should not be able to insta-gib your team in a Zarya ult. You have to really, really play around it though, and expect that to happen, because that's a huge part of Tracer's utility in this team comp, is being able to bomb on the Zarya ult. So, whoa, we have a hook from the next dimension really picking off soon on Tracer, and that's gonna cost Misfits a good 10-15 seconds. Not too bad for just one hook, but Tracer's going to get here really quickly, and we're going to try to push again. So here we go. Envious kind of giving up the high ground here, but it's not too bad. They're playing kind of far back, relying on Taimu on that catwalk to get the DPS in. Here we just have a Reinhardt poke battle, and they both go down at around the same time. Now, we do have, if we look at the battlefield as it is right now, Soon back here at full health still has all of his abilities kind of poking out. This card is really far along. Envious has given Misfits quite a bit of room to play with, to the point where they're actually getting so close that Taimu himself is getting a little bit pressured. So right now, Envious maybe should have been a little bit more aggressive, because at this point, Misfits has pushed them into a legitimate corner, because this is a wall, remember, there's no kiting back past that. So if Envious had maybe engaged a little bit earlier, they wouldn't have been put into this really sort of oppressive position. But we're going to have stuff happen. People fly around. Reinhardt's charging. But like I said, because there was just so much pressure put on Envious because they held so far back, they were forced to just do all kinds of strange things. Like you saw the Reinhardt charge out. You saw the supports were left out by themselves. And that's going to allow Misfits to take a very quick point, just like Envious did. So now they need to hold this checkpoint for 5 minutes, and it's looking really bad because Envious got those bad spawns, Misfits going and pushing into them intentionally. So maybe if I would have preferred if Envious had gone out the other door, which is this door, but even still, if Misfits had pushed that properly, they just got the perfect timing on those kills that made it so Envious was going to die if they came out of either of these doors. Now, one possibility when you're stuck here, so this is just something to think about. When you're stuck here, and especially because you need to hold this. If you don't hold this, you die, you lose, right? If you're in the case of Envious. So they had a couple people spawning back here. And they had people spawning like underground here in that spawn room. Now, if they had just sat in the spawn room, because if Misfits plays it properly, they're definitely going to push you and they're definitely going to kill you if you come through either of these doors. If you just sat in the spawn room, waited for your team to push out, to get back, that is, from spawn, and then pushed out together, they would have actually had a good push now. I know it sounds strange to sit in the spawn room, but I think, just some food for thought to think about it, that might have been an okay play in this particular position. So Misfits is going to get a huge positioning foothold here, and they don't have very far to go to take this match. Envious sitting here with only 2, if we do a quick ultimate inventory here, only 3 ults up at this very particular moment. And Misfits should know this because Misfits won the last fight, didn't really use any ultimates on themselves, so they should know that they're up. And now that they have those 5 ultimates, they should be pushing as soon as possible to prevent Envious from getting theirs up just through the passive second-by-second regen that the ultimate cooldowns sort of have. So here we go, and let's see if they manage to push in time before Envious gets up all of their big ultimates. It looks like the ultimates are a little bit staggered. Taimu does get some nice kills. So it looks like Envious is actually going to push this back, but Misfits does the proper thing. And once they saw a couple ults come out, and they basically had 2 options. Either they push really fast, use all 5 of their ultimates, and just absolutely whomp through Envious, or they take it slow. Envious uses a couple of their ults, and Misfits intentionally holds on to theirs. So you see, not a single ultimate was used last fight by Misfits. 2 were used by Envious. This is going to mean that Misfits is going to have a huge advantage coming into this next fight. So Envious going to be using the Zarya ult. It's going to be countered by the Lucio ult, however, and you have Nevix here on Reaper. Not soon this time, actually. And he's Ana ulted, gets 3, gets 4. And that ultimate advantage was just too big, and that was a 100% result of the discipline shown by Misfits last fight. You know, it's such a knee-jerk reaction, and they're just gonna pick off these final little stragglers here. Not really too big of a problem, but the knee-jerk reaction from Misfits when they heard the Deadeye, when they saw the hammer down, would be to naturally just use your ultimates too to go in, but they didn't do that. They had the discipline, held their ultimates, and it wound up paying off. And so this is something that we don't see too much. We didn't see in the rest of the series. I've been talking about how teams have been burning their ultimates for no reason. I've said that a couple times this match, a couple times in the last match I casted, map 1, that you can go check out as well. But there is an example where when you do hold on to your ultimates and you are smart about it, it definitely does pay off. So anyway, I think that I've elaborated enough on that. Misfits playing a very smart match. Even though Envious has those big players, Tailspin, Taimu, and they definitely did make plays this game, Misfits just with their discipline, smart play, wound up taking it. So I hope you enjoyed, hope you learned a little bit, maybe even had a little bit of fun. So good luck in solo queue and have a great day. Peace out, guys.